Hello everyone! Welcome back to Chasing Thoughts with Chase. It's been a long time, honestly, since I've done an episode. Far longer than it ever should be. But I'm glad to get this finally started up. As you can see, I am in a new place. It's a bit let's put it bluntly, claustrophobic, but it's very nice. I make do with what I've got. I'm very grateful for all the blessings I've been given. But enough about that. Today's episode is going to be on the topic of soap. And you might be wondering why I'm doing this. It's because I want to. I did a bunch of research on soap. I'm not letting that research go to waste. It's like actually 3+ hours of research. I've got to tell someone about this. Please. Please, I need to yap about soap for 20 minutes. Please let me have this, people. And if you guys have any suggestions of things you want me to do in the future, let me know. I have some pretty awesome ideas cooked up. Not sure whether those are actually going to happen. They're still in the planning stage, but still. Okay, so without any further ado, let's just get straight into it. Let's get talking about the science behind soap. If I had an intro, I'd cue the intro, but I don't have an intro, so let's just get started. Okay, so let's just get into the principle of how soap in general works, because this is actually kind of interesting. So, soap itself is a salt filled with fatty acids. Some of these chemicals are sodium stearate or sodium lauryl sulfate. I know there's a bunch of big fancy words there, but just basically a bunch of different salts. These salts consist of what's known as a hydrophobic carbon tail and a hydrophilic head. So the best way I can explain this, editing me put a picture right here-ish by my head, somewhere by my head, and of how this works. But first, let's go into what hydrophobic and hydrophilic mean. Being hydrophobic means that a substance that doesn't mean a substance is afraid of water. I know that phobic is based off of phobia, which is a fear or disgust or something, but the actual meaning of the word means that it doesn't mix with water. One of the biggest examples you can see of this is the fact that oil doesn't mix with water. You can test this by trying to mix oil and water together. You can kind of shake it and force it to mix together for a bit, but eventually they just naturally separate. That's what being hydrophobic means. I also put in my notes that's why the phenomenon of flames on water can occur. And I also researched the etymology of the word, so I'm going to yap about that for a minute or two now. So the etymology of the word hydrophobic is based on the Greek language and composes of root words hydro, water, and phobic meaning fearing. Again, I already talked about this earlier. And I am so sorry if it seems like I am having trouble delivering my ideas. I have this issue a lot, but let's keep going. Hydrophilic is the exact opposite, meaning that a molecule will have the tendency to latch onto water given the chance. Now, when a lot of these molecules with these opposing properties come together, they become saturated and turn into cells. Now, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm gonna Google this real quick. I cannot believe I am doing last-minute research. My cells! It's my cells. Okay. That is weird, but okay. Sorry my eye focus isn't on the camera. So my cells are tiny particles made of water-soluble materials, where in the case of soap, the hydrophobic tails are pointing inwards, and the hydrophilic heads, I'm saying these because this is the simplest way for me to explain it. Also, I took these notes 2 months ago, and I kind of forgot about it, are facing outwards. My cells are also used in medicine to transport drugs to the body tissue or cells, but that's a tangent that's not really part of this video. It's just an interesting thing I found out. Now, there is something very important called the critical micelle concentration, and that is when molecules come, the point where molecules come together to become micelles. And it's actually a really important part of creating the right soap formulation. If it's wrong, your soap won't work properly. Now, the big $1 million question. What exactly does all of this mean when soap comes into contact with dirt? Well, a lot of dirt that is cleaned is hydrophobic, meaning that when soap molecules come into contact with it, they bind to it in a way where the tail grabs the dirt and the heads poke outside, decreasing the adhesion and making it easier to scrub off the stuff. So, no, soap doesn't clean your body by yourself. This is why scrubbing your hands properly is still important with soap, because that's the action that actually gets the dirt off your hands, is the scrubbing. The soap just makes that job easier to do. Now, when you're when you're talking, I also put, but what about hand soap? And this is like a perfect tangent transition, because there is a difference between laundry soap and hand soap. It's not a massive difference, but the main difference is that hand soap is a little bit weaker, and it also has stuff like moisturizers and stuff to help reduce the impact on your hands. The reason this is important is because your body produces a bunch of oils that, while germs love to come and say, hey, come hang out here, woohoo, your skin also needs, because if you don't have that, then your skin becomes dry and irritated. So, whereas a laundry soap is designed to be just get off the stuff, hand soap is more gentle on your hands with both the moisturizers and the decreased intensity of the solution used. Now, you can use dish soap to wash your hands. If you do it like once or twice, it's not going to be a big deal. But if you're consistently using it over hand soap, you are going to see some issues, like your skin drying up and irritating, and that's not good either. Now, you might have listened through this whole yap session and thought, what about germs? Those are arguably the most important thing that you wash off your hands. How does soap get rid of those? Does it work like hand sanitizer, where it breaks down the germs slowly? It does something biological to it? The answer is unfortunately kind of lame, and that is, it literally uses the same process that it uses to get rid of dirt. It also gets rid of germs via the same thing. The germs stick to the soap bubbles, you scrub the soap bubbles off, you rinse them, and they go down the drain. That is pretty much how it works. And also, again, on a bit of a side tangent, I'm not a hygiene expert here, but this is why drying your hands is also important when they say, oh, you need to dry your hands properly. Because if you don't do it properly, you're literally just reintroducing the germs that you spent like a minute scrubbing off. What was the point of that? This next section is a bit of a side tangent, and it's because I got curious about why do they only claim like 99.9% of germs are taken care of by this cleaning solution or hand sanitizer? Which, again, hand sanitizer is not the main topic of this video. This is still a soap video. But I did go on this side tangent. I did do the research, so I'm going to share with you guys. You might have noticed it only says it only removes like 99% of bacteria, 99.9% of germs. Obviously, this is a legal thing, but also there are some germs that can be incredibly stubborn and just not get removed by soap even if you try scrubbing. And under the right circumstances, they may actually become resistant to it, specifically bacteria. Bacteria, bit of a side tangent thing here, a bit of trivia I know, but bacteria has this really annoying feature where they can communicate with each other. So let's say that, again, this is off the topic, but bit of trivia I know. You have this antibody that you're using to take care of bacteria, and a bacteria becomes resistant to it. They can communicate with other bacteria and make those ones also resistant to it. And all of a sudden, you've got a strain of the bacteria that does the same bad stuff the other one did, but is now resistant to the treatment you were trying to use. This is one of the reasons why bacteria can be really annoying to treat, and why you have to be careful not to overuse antibiotics, because otherwise you just get a bunch of super bacteria that is resistant to everything. Here's the one of the big things I asked to put to myself when trying to do this video was, what's the difference between bar soap and liquid soap? Is there a difference in the way that it's composed, that it's made? And actually, there is a difference between bar soap and hand soap. And for those of you who do not know what bar soap is, put up pictures of bar soap here, liquid soap here. Editor, if you can do that, listen, I know you're normally lazy, but can you do this for me, please? I'm going to assume you did it, okay? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, editor me. Now, which one is better is a bit of a subject matter that's up for debate, but I just want to tell you the difference between them. And the main difference is the ingredients. Now, bar soap is primarily made from sodium hydroxide, whereas liquid soap uses potassium hydroxide. I know those sound like big, scary scientific words, but don't worry, I'm gonna try my best to break it. So, sodium hydroxide is a white crystalline solid that has an unusual quirk of absorbing moisture from the air around it. It also tends to be a very corrosive material, so it's not as safe to handle without proper safety equipment. Now, very important here, it also dissolves when it comes to contact with water or acid, and it can release a lot of heat when doing this. Bit of interesting chemistry stuff. It's also known as caustic soda or lye. You might be listening to the words corrosive and dangerous and releases a bunch of heat during a chemical reaction and be wondering, why are they approving this for use in soap? Isn't this gonna burn my hands off? Well, there's a number of other oils present in the soap that it reacts with. So by the time you're actually holding the bar of soap in your hand, which again, sodium hydroxide is used for bar soap. So by the time you're holding the bar of soap in your hand, there is no more potassium hydroxide. None of the corrosive materials remain. It's all been turned into soap. Because chemistry is awesome like that, baby. Woo! So, yeah, it's completely safe to use on your skin. I want to do this because I don't want to be like, have people going like, oh, you're fear-mongering it. I'm not fear-mongering it. It is a very dangerous material to handle raw, but once it reacts with the other ingredients in soap, it's completely harmless and it's just not there anymore. Because chemistry has a way of turning one material into a different one. Okay, so potassium hydroxide is a bit different because it has potassium first off, and it's also more flaky. Unfortunately, it has the same lovely quirk like sodium hydroxide, where it's also very corrosive. But again, it reacts with all the other stuff in soap, and by the time the soap is made, there's no sodium hydroxide left in it. It's just soap. So it's perfectly safe to put on your hands. Don't drink it though. Please do not drink liquid soap. I do not think that needs to be said, but please don't. So the final tangent I have for this, I admit, really short podcast episode, because I kind of went through these really quickly. Normally a podcast episode takes me like 20 minutes, but I just kind of breezed through my notes here. And this was the main question that inspired me to start this. So several years ago, I was helping my dad at a shop. He worked at a vehicle shop, and I helped him a couple days. But during one of those days, we got our hands dirty and we had to clean our hands with soap. But not just any normal soap. No, this soap had pumice. Pumice, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Pumice, which is if you guys know geology, it's a volcanic rock that has a bunch of little holes in it. It also has the unique quirk of being able to float up in water sometimes. So that's really cool. But the main question is, why was it put in soap? What was the purpose of the pumice? What made it so special compared to just regular soap, that it would be higher grade or something? Because I didn't understand it at the time. I was like, what? anywhere between 12, 13 years old when I was doing that. I don't know. But the point of that being is it's basically what's known as an exfoliant. And what an exfoliant is a substance that's used to remove dead skin cells that accumulate over at the surface of your skin as a result of your body naturally shedding it. Now, what's actually in the soap is not actually, well, pumice itself per se, but pumice powder, which is the stuff grind into a powder, also been covered by the soap and other oils to reduce the strain of using pumice by itself as an exfoliant, which makes me wonder, A, is this an actual thing that people do? I didn't do any research on this. Like, would you literally just take a rock and go, hey there, people, today we're going to be grinding our hands with pumice stone as an exfoliant? I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry. It makes it really useful for helping to clean up more stubborn grime that the dirt that regular hand soap might not be as effective in taking care of, because again, it just helps with it's something that's more abrasive than scrubbing against the skin that helps get rid of more stuck on materials like oil and such. And on an unrelated note of that, I just to, give the screen time a little bit extra, because I don't want to make like a 15-minute podcast episode, and also because I randomly found this out. But Dawn is used a lot when cleaning stuff like oil. I didn't go too much in depth as to why that is. I'm assuming their particular solution is really effective at removing oil, but yeah, I saw that online. Again, take that last part with a grain of salt. I did not do a lot of research on that last part. I just remember seeing that and being like, that's a nice little tidbit. But I didn't actually put it in my notes. And on the side note of notes, I do actually have a Google Doc that I'm reading off because, gotta make sure I present the information as accurately as possible. But I also have footnotes. If I remember correctly, I have like 7 footnotes, plus a number of different stuff, like tangents I could do for trivia shorts or whatever. But if you guys want to see all the footnotes and fact check me on any of this, or, present some new information that I didn't know about soap before, I will be putting all the footnotes in the description. I'm only going to put the footnotes and not the actual 2 pages worth of notes, because most of that is just trying to take the information from the page and plant it on a document in a way that my mind could digest. So again, I am not a soap expert. I am just a dude who went and looked up soap for a few hours, made a Google Doc about it, and wanted to share some information about it. And I hope you learned something new about soap. I hope you learned about particularly the pumice part. I don't really have much else to say. Thank you all for listening. I know it's been a long time since I've done a Chase and Thoughts with Chase podcast episode, but it's a blast to finally record this, to finally get this out of the way, to be like, yes, now I can go and edit this and stuff. And editing me is probably not going to be happy, because I asked him to do a couple things too many, because I do not like doing editing, like putting stuff in for these videos, but I'm going to do it for the sake of doing so. Anyway, you guys know the drill. If you enjoyed this, you can subscribe if you want to see more episodes. I promise that I will not try my best to not make the next episode 4 months apart. There was a lot that's been happening in real life. I don't want to get into it, but next episode, I'm not sure what the next episode's going to be just yet, but I have a few very cool ideas on here. If you guys want to know what my main subjects are, again, I'm at the end of the video, so I already explained everything about soap. I do science, literature, and occasionally philosophy. Here, those are my 3 main subjects that I do here. Anyway, love you all. Hope you all have an amazing day. I will see you all next time.